Well, they're getting things kicked off here this week. Of course, I guess the big news of the weekend, you could say, was the amount of snow that got through a lot of the U.S. I know it's probably early for a lot of people to be wanting to think about snow, but of course, coming to a lot of areas that have probably been asking for some precipitation. And kind of to lead into this week's discussion, something that stuck out last week was we had a little bit of a dry spell for much of the US. However, you were kind
Hmm.
of signaling the potential of, the jet stream kind of shifting in a way that would bring a lot of or some better chances of some moisture back into a good section of the Midwest. Is that kind of the case for upcoming here in the next few weeks? And kind of just talk about the impacts that producers can expect here for the short term.
Yeah, so this is the picture about 5 a.m. in my backyard. But you can see on the side of my face how much sunshine is out there right now. And it's all cleared out. The snow is melting. We got about 2 inches here in East Central Illinois. Maybe a couple places got three. But take a look at this pattern. This was the weekend snowfall. So it kind of came out of the Canadian prairie right through here. Did it get to your house, Dawson? Did you get a little snow?
We got like flurries, but if you
Yeah.
look at the map, we had just like the traces, like not a lot of snow
Yeah.
stuck to the
it,
ground.
it kind of broke apart right here. And then once the winds shifted and came across Lake Michigan, that is actually where we got most of our snow. So yeah, I'm about 200 miles south of Lake Michigan. We are still getting lake effect snow and heavy lake effect snow here. And it's not done yet. It's going to continue. And some of the snow this morning is actually even moving farther to the south into Tennessee, through Kentucky, and it's going to hit up against the Appalachian Mountains too and break into the Northeast. So this system's punching quite a pack. Excuse me, packing quite a punch. But it's kind of neat to see. This is the satellite data from today. I'm just kind of rocking back and forth over this morning, and you can see the snow underneath the clouds. And again, we're just watching that radar showing some of that lake effect and little vortex that spun up right there, Illinois and Indiana. That's this morning and through the middle of the day, moving down into Kentucky and Tennessee. So there's snow that's moving through some places that need to have this moisture. Now it's really cold the farther south you go, and it's going to stay colder. We can see that the temperatures are 20 to 30 degrees colder than they were yesterday here. And if we look at this morning's lows, this frost line is just going to keep working its way toward the south and east with time, but it's not going to last long. I mean, take a look at Saturday. If you are sick of this already, well, I've got 70s coming back to the Midwest by Saturday. But I don't want to, overshadow the fact that we might get a frost pretty far to the south here in Florida. It's going to hit a lot of the Gulf Coast. And even tomorrow morning on Tuesday, Veterans Day, we're looking at some pretty chilly temperatures across much of the eastern half of the country. Again, that frost line, well, everywhere that you see in gray here, we're expecting a frost, a temperature below, at or below freezing in the next 7 days. Okay. Things are going to turn around pretty quickly, though. These freeze warnings are going to zip out of here by Wednesday, and we're going to get back into a much more mild pattern as time goes on. And as we think it all through, we're going to be asking, are we going to get additional moisture, which is where you started this? So I want to point out something. This is where the Clipper came through, deepened over the Great Lakes, and is moving toward the Northeast. And you can see the moisture that came through here and also here and is moving into the Northeast. These are areas that need it. I mean, take a look at how dry the subsurface soil moistures. Look how dry it is in the southern plains or in the southeast or even up in the mid-Atlantic. Also in the Golden Triangle here in Montana, it's an extremely fertile part of Montana. Very, very dry right now. So we need to get, as you asked at the beginning, we need to get these systems going. So what does it look like? Well, we watched some more lake effect throughout the day today. We then see the system exit northeast. There's, like I said, still cooler in place on Tuesday, but then a big ridge begins to open up in the mid part of the country while troughs of low pressure try to dig into California by the middle of the week. And there it is. That's Thursday. And what we're going to watch is this ridge opens, bringing in heat, but that trough moves through. And that means by this weekend, Saturday into Sunday, there's going to be something sneaking through the midsection of the country, which is going to be our next potential chance for some rain. I don't think it's going to be snow this time. It's too warm. But Dawson, look at the flow. I mean, there's waves. We want to see that. We don't want to see them doing a lot of this where there's a low here and a high to the north of it. I don't like that. That gets the system all blocked up. But when you put it all together, it's not just this week that looks active. I'll tell you, next week does as well. November 18th to the 24th. Look at all of this. We need to get this in here. So how do we get there? Well, first of all, it's got to get us flow that comes through the atmosphere over the southwestern United States. And that has been an area we've not seen this kind of flow for a while. The map I'm drawing on here is the last 2 weeks of precipitation anomalies in terms of a percent of normal. And it's just been bone dry here. I mean, it's been bone dry around the Great Lakes, northern plains. There's a lot of places you could pick it out that are dry. But as we watch this system dive into the west and make its way across the four corner states, it will emerge late this week into the weekend, attempting to bring in some moisture into that central pocket. I'll just kind of say focused on the Ozarks, but all the surrounding states as well. But notice it doesn't bring the moisture here from the plains to the Canadian prairie. It doesn't get a lot of western Texas, and it leaves the southeast drier as well. But for the West, we got a storm system coming through. So let's go get an idea on the timing. We've already watched one system leave, so that makes sense. Here we go. This is now Wednesday night, getting into Thursday. There it is. By the time we get into Friday, Saturday here, watch it emerge in the southern plains. Look at that. Now, what's going on is there's actually two lows. There's one up here and there's one down here, and they are kind of linked together. And this one's going to be the southern stream one that's going to try to ride that front. So you'll see that going forward into Monday and Tuesday. See, it just rides along that front. That's our next chance. So when is it again for the Central US? Sunday, Monday. It exits by Monday night. Okay. But there is moisture coming, and we got to keep seeing these systems as they evolve. What I'm concerned about is, yes, we're going to be reviving the moisture here, but we're not going to be providing a lot farther to the north. That continues to stay dry, not just in the European model, but in the GFS as well. That's a 10-day precip forecast map. So I get worried about this. Over the next 10 days, this whole region, well, this is the probability of staying under a tenth of an inch, meaning not much precip at all. And that's just a big section of the middle part of the country that's looking relatively dry. Now, snow-wise, just to show you, the West is going to take advantage of this next system. Both the GFS and the European are trying to load up the Sierra Nevada, the Cascades, and the Rockies, which is fantastic. They need to start loading these mountains up now and early so that they have good reservoir, fullness by the time we get into spring. But just want to let you know, man, with each of these storm systems, we're going to just crank the winds up again. I don't know how bad the winds were where you were yesterday, but yesterday and then today, early this morning at our house over here in East Central Illinois, man, it was just crazy strong winds. But I do like the fact that I have four models all projecting an active go at week 2, right? So that's at least a benefit to getting the pattern to move. And take a look at this. Week 3, that is the week of Thanksgiving. And then week 4 included here, sorry, week 3 and week 4. And then even week 5 and beyond continues to stay active. This is all the way out there to mid-December. And it's just, I mean, look at this. That's a big chunk of the country painted in green, saying be prepared for a bit of an active go of it. But the only spot I'm really worried about is the southeast of the mid-Atlantic. Now, temperature-wise, again, that's the cold spot right now. But as I showed you earlier, watch this. Here's today's highs and tomorrow's. Look at the plains already up in the 70s. By Wednesday, it starts to spread farther east. By Thursday, I mean, we've got really warm temperatures coming back, and Friday and Saturday, and it's hot. It's actually hot for this time of year. That's 20, 25 degrees warmer than average. We should be looking at highs in the 50s. We're looking at highs in the 70s. So there's a lot of mild air coming through, but it's coming through in waves. And I want to take a note, especially of the GFS model. This time frame of the 20th through the 25th, boy, it's letting out more of that cold air. And we think that might be something we have to think a lot about to finish November and start, December. So long story short, we've got 70% of the country in some form of drought. And what I just showed you is that there's at least within the next week another system coming through the middle part of the country. Doesn't hit the northern plains, but it's the southern plains, Delta, Ozarks, Midwest. We then see that the longer range forecasts all the way to mid-December keep activity up. And what I want to do is get in some of that moisture now while the temperatures fluctuate so much, so that way we can melt it and get into the soil. Like I'm watching the snow melt outside my window right now, just loving the fact it's not much moisture, but it's soaking into the ground, filling in some of those cracks because I'm in one of those really dry spots.
Yeah, definitely the keynote of making sure that gets into the ground here sooner than later to potentially have that build up down the road. And again, pushing back out to that longer range forecast, what do you continue to see there? Because what we talked about last week again was the fact of, NOAA's updated drought outlooks was not a lot of improvement for some areas, as
Yeah.
well as, persistent and developing drought for other areas in the presence of La Nina, as well as other factors as well.
Well, I'll show you this. Okay. These are the MJO phase diagrams. And I want you to note that right now the MJO's forecast is staying a lot in phase 6 and 7. Now, I was out in Washington last week and I said MJO phase 6, 7, and there were like 100 FFA kids in the crowd, and they all went nuts for me saying 6, 7. But that's really where the MJO is. It's just living here right now. And what's important about that, I think you can see better if you look at an ocean temperature diagram. You've got strong trade winds like this. You've got trade wind westerly wind bursts like that, and they're all just meeting in this area. And that is phase 6 and phase 7 of the MJO. You're going, all right, to make the story, what does this even mean? Well, if the MJO stays there, that's what I'm looking for here, all the way to the end of the month. See that blue-green spot? It doesn't go this direction or that direction. It stays right over the top of this bit of geography. Then we know that historically, coming out of November to December, we tend to get just plenty of access to cold air. Doesn't mean every day is cold, but like what we just saw, we could expect to see that a few more times. And that's why we focus so much on these particular events as we look out there longer term. So the importance of this is that, look, even out to mid-December, the European model now has opened up that channel to more access to cold air. Now I'm going to tell you something, Dawson. This is fragile though. When these strong westerly wind bursts, which are part of something we call the Indian Ocean dipole, or the trade winds with La Nina, when they fight against each other like this, usually something gives. And I think the IOD is going to give first. Now, watch this. When the IOD gives out, the trade winds just go on across. And all of a sudden, there's no more really solid support for this upwelling of cold water. And you're going, what does all that mean? I mean, I think El Nino peaks before Christmas. We might be witnessing its peak right now, which means the second half of this winter could be entirely different from the front half of this winter. But we kind of saw something like that last winter. And I just want to show you something. Last November, that's what the ocean temperatures look like. The missing piece was that the Indian Ocean dipole this year is much stronger than it was a year ago in terms of its negative phase. So just in case you're curious, last December was mild, but getting into January, watch Arctic outbreak after Arctic outbreak do that. Remember, it made snow down here in New Orleans. That was that late January timeframe. We got very warm, very dry in the Southwest. We saw the Palisades fires last winter. That was what happened last winter. And the precip pattern just had a couple of noses of wet conditions right in through those two areas. And so you see, we're kind of used to this non-uniformity in the winter given these La Ninas, because we've had 5 La Ninas in the last 6 years. And I think this La Nina gives up soon. Now, I do want to show you something, Dawson. This was the forecast from last November for last December, January, February. And if you look at it, it didn't do so hot. Like it predicted this area to be wetter than average. We were in a snow drought. It got some things right. It was drier here and drier in the southeast, but it didn't do well in the midsection of the country. And if you want to know why, I'll just give you the top thing to watch, okay? When we get into December and January, I'll be paying more attention to the Atlantic. But until we get to that point, it will have everything to do with this region right in through here, the Aleutian Islands, the Bering Sea. Last winter, we dropped low pressure in there, which built high pressure here. So the jet went around, over, and down. That's why we had such warm, dry conditions here. And we were such cold weather in the middle of winter in the midsection of the country. Now, this year, watch this. The newest forecast, let me go out here to a global equatorial view and do monthly pressure. Look at this. Look, let's take you to January, or I don't know, December. It doesn't matter. The models are forecasting not warmer, but higher than normal pressure in that area. They're not forecasting low pressure in that area. You're going, okay, make it make sense. Well, if that's the case, the jet comes over the top here, comes across the United States with a more westerly trajectory. Translation is that tends to give us a much more active winter pattern overall. So I start to look at these December, January, February forecasts, or even the midwinter forecasts, and they're just a bit more active. But I'm just looking at this going, hey, you said it was going to look like this last year, and we didn't get any of this. We didn't have all the snow in the north. But I think this is the winter, given the features I just told you, that could make that happen. And we're looking at this and seeing other support models as well. Like, let me show you the National Multi-Model Ensemble real fast here, Dawson. Like here is the January, February, March outlook from that model. Looks kind of similar, doesn't it? So I'm going to ramble along another second here, but I do want to tell you this, Dawson. Let's say the models are right and that is dry. And then spring thunderstorms don't hit this area, but instead hit the plains, right? Let's just imagine it's not a southeast severe weather season in April and May, but it's a plains severe weather season in April and May. If that is the case, we tend to watch drought move in this direction, around which we have this massive ring of fire. And in those particular cases, everywhere that I'm coloring under, by the time you get into summer, nonstop rain. The closer you get to the ridge, the greater the risk of dryness, though. So it's just a thought. It's not solid. It's not, we're months in advance, but why not look out that far given these forecasts for winter?
Yeah, definitely some things to think about for, yeah, again, wanting to eliminate drought in some areas, just in
Yeah,
general, and having an eye on that. Let's move down to South America again,
sure.
just because we've seen a lot of rain in the forecast, but kind of looking at some observations, it doesn't seem like a lot of that's materializing. What are you seeing down there?
Well, I'm seeing that the monsoon is kind of coming in fits and starts. I've used that phrase before. That's typical, but usually that's done by now. That's an October thing. By November, it gets going, and we're
Mhm.
not there yet. I mean, if you look right now, the planting progress is what, 8% off of last year, 5% off the normal. And that's in Mato Grosso. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. Some of our satellites measured halfway decent moisture last week. That's not dry, but still they're behind. Now take a look at this. That's the European model 14-day forecast. And it is drier, not dry, but drier through here. Very wet in Paraguay and Mato Grosso do Sul. Dry in Argentina, dry in Rio Grande do Sul, dry in Uruguay, which is here. Now look at this. That's the GFS. They actually agree for once. I'm like blown away by this. So I need to know if that dryness there, which by the way, that's probably 60% of Brazil's growing area that I just circled. If that area sees another 2 weeks of lackluster rainfall, you just have to wonder because it's going to get hot in there too, what that might do to the soybean crop that's new. And if you look out there longer term, though, the Europeans still doing its old tricks. Oh, everything's wet here, very dry into Argentina and southern Brazil. But take a look at this. This is the new GFS extended. It's wet over there as well, but it's got some dryness here in that corner of Mato Grosso. And look at all the dryness down there. Both models at least agree on this, which means I think we need to pay close attention to how this is going to shake down over the next month or so to determine if there's any holes in this South American growing season. But Dawson, I'm going to say the same thing I told you last week and the week before that. We may we may think we're seeing weather problems down here, but just remember they could grow a crop on half the normal rainfall in the Cerrado. And two, Brazil has shown us now for a decade that they can out acre any weather problem, right? I mean, just by adding 2, 3, 4% more acreage every year, maybe the yield goes down, but the total production stays high. So that would be my assessment.
Yeah, their government has done a very good job of incentivizing higher acres each year. And so yeah, I mean, even 20% of the production down in southern Brazil could still come out pretty decent. And just, I mean, up here, we know that a little bit of stress on the crop is kind of good for it. Dig those roots deeper to find available soil moisture. And so, yeah, it for now they might be doing good, but yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on potentials of that ongoing dryness. And are we going to have as big of a crop as our government and as big as their government has been saying here moving forward?
Yeah, what I would do is not put my hope in there being some sort of disaster that supply side shocks the world with Brazil's production. I just don't.
Right.
Brazil is going to put me in a, yeah, prove it. I'm going to wait and see what you can and can't do before I ever make a call on it.
Yep, definitely. And I mean, we're going to have government estimates coming from them each day too. And or not each day, but each week, each month. And going to be
Yeah.
watching that here moving forward. But always appreciate your insights for that, Eric. And we'll continue to monitor what's going on here in the U.S. moving forward as we're heading into some colder temperatures here, kind of coming up here closely.
Yeah. But don't forget 70s by
70s
Saturday.
by Saturday. So yeah, definitely some fun swings, but we'll continue watching that moving forward. And thank you again, Eric.
Yeah, you bet.